Hey folks, good day to wherever you are. This is Angelo Lorenzo again, and today I have the privilege of interviewing one of the cool guys that I met on. I actually subscribed to his YouTube channel before, and I was also privileged to be his guest before in his podcast that he hosts. So Christian Reeve is a UK-based artist and actor, and he is also the host of the Christian Reeve podcast. And we're going to talk about more of his podcast and his passion about the arts and acting. So thank you so much for coming on this show and for accepting the invitation, Christian.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So first, let's start with being a British. How is it like these days?
Wow. That's a weird question to answer.
I'm sorry.
But it's just broad. I don't know. I mean, I suppose being British in general from the UK never really changes. I think we're quite a sarcastic, dry human nation. I mean, that never really changed. I think the only thing that ever really changes is that we become more and more multicultural as time goes on. But
right.
I don't know, like everyone that I've noticed that comes here tends to kind of blend into the culture. Like we have like this shared kind of culture here that's like it's difficult to explain, but yeah, it's just I don't know. It's kind of, if I had to describe Britain, it's kind of like melancholic, complaining and whinging, mixed with fun times and banter and jokes, and we're very sarcastic. We like to take the I was going to censor myself. Take the mick out of everything.
No worries. Yeah. But there are definitely advantages and disadvantages, right?
You know what's funny? I'll just share a quick story. I know you want to talk about this a bit later, but I'll just quickly say this now. Like when I moved abroad and I started actually living abroad, I never thought this would happen to me, but I did actually get homesick because I was there for about 3 years, and I got about 2 years in, I got really homesick, and I couldn't figure out why. I don't know. And I think over time I kind of realized that the reason why is that I started to appreciate where I was from more so, you know, and like now that I've been back for like 2 years, I'll still whine and whinge about the UK. We all do it, but we all love it as well. It's that sort of thing that you whinge about, but you actually love it as well. And it's kind of like a love-hate relationship, but I don't know, it's not really hatred. It's just kind of like, there's this thing that we do here where we all collectively whinge and whine about a problem, but we also kind of, it's like a weird kind of right. Like, I don't know, like queuing in this country, in this nation, if you like, is a big thing.
Yeah, but
for example, I remember the first time I was at, like, I don't know where it was, maybe it was uni, somewhere else, and there was like some Italian exchange students, and like they just did not queue. And I remember seeing all the people, this is like perfectly British thing, like they no one would say anything, but everyone would just be like, and it's that kind of like passive aggressive kind of, you know, that's British, right? That passive aggressive kind of like, oh, so rude, you know. But then sometimes there's the flip side of that where people will just be loud, and I don't know, it is I don't know, I love this nation, and I also am embarrassed by it sometimes, but you know, I'm from here. And I think what I've learned over the years is that anywhere in the world has its positives and negatives. And there's a lot that I'm proud of with this nation, and then there's a lot I'm embarrassed by as well. And it's, but I always try to just focus on the positives, and, you know, just kind of because I think, and I've never spoken about this before, but I think for a long time I was trying to escape that, and I was like, no, I'm not like that, you know, I'm not like this, but you are a product of where you're from. Like, you
Right.
can't pretend you're not from somewhere. And while I might be more European leaning and I'm more interested in what's going on in Europe and stuff, you know, I don't, nowadays I'm much more like, yeah, you know, I'm from the UK, proud to be from the UK, you know, and I celebrate it more, whereas years ago I didn't. So you'll hear me occasionally like diss the UK, but I actually love it, you know, and
Right.
it's yeah, I don't know. Maybe that just sounds like rambling nonsense, but that's kind of my views.
That's actually a great way to start, I guess, the conversation, because I think you're the first British that I interview for my channel. I've interviewed a
Oh,
couple
wow.
of like Americans before, and most of like a lot of Filipinos as well. I'm from the Philippines, and it's really amazing. I can definitely relate with what you said about there's definitely pros and cons with being who we are and where we come from, and I can definitely relate to the positive and the negatives as well. I think universally one thing that's advantageous about being a British is your accent. I mean, like people love to hear about like listen to the British accent, and I'm sure most of our viewers and listeners as well would definitely agree to that. But anyway, moving on to your podcast. I think that it's because of your podcast that we got connected. So the funny thing is, we actually had that interview last year, I guess. As far as my memory can like bring it back. But anyway, it was a great conversation. We talked about my writing career, and I also asked some questions about your passion in the arts and the act and the craft of acting. So tell us about how you started your podcast, and what's been like to manage and host a podcast that's thriving until now.
Okay, I'll answer the second part firstly.
Okay.
I wish it was thriving. I really do. That
but
would
it
be.
is.
I mean, well, not really. I'm a stats guy. I come from a business background, and I can tell you that in the last year, I've been doing the podcast since 2020, and there's nearly 160 episodes, and over that time, it's taken a nosedive in views. But like on average, so you'll get like, for instance, episode 150 got a lot of views on like YouTube and Spotify or wherever else it's posted. But that was like a specialist episode. There was like a special topic and stuff. But mostly the episodes struggle to get like a couple of listens or whatever, which is obviously very frustrating for myself. But again, going back to the business point, like where it was maybe last year, like 20 listens per episode, now it's like 3. And I'll be honest, I'm scratching my head trying to figure out that. I have tried different things. I am trying to reach people. But I don't know, I've kind of pretty much done everything. Like I thought about doing appearances like this. I've done quite a few now. It didn't make a difference. It's fun. I enjoy it. Like that's the thing, when people like yourself reach out and they're like, oh, hey, do you want to be on my show? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Because it is fun. You have a conversation, you share details about yourself. You know, if you're lucky, maybe a few people will discover you, and you know, but it's never wasted. Do you know what I mean? It's always a good time, and that's the way I try to look at it. But as far as like techniques of trying to get it thriving, we're not quite there yet. But I try always to be positive with everything as much as I can. And I will say that we've had a lot of guests on the show, and we do continue to keep getting interest in people wanting to appear on the show. So that's a real big plus. And there are a handful of people I know that that listen to the show. Shout out to them. Thank you so much. And I keep trying to do it for them, and hopefully they continue to enjoy it. But going back to, so that's kind of like where it's at the moment. But as far as it beginning, you know, I always wanted to do a podcast for years. I don't really know why. I think it might have been because the first time I ever heard a podcast was probably the first time most people did. certainly in the UK, is when Ricky Gervais did his podcast, which was, he originally did like a radio show with Stephen Merchant and Carl Pilkington for years on, I think it was XFM, then Sirius Radio, something like that. And then at some point they got, you know, some deals together. They did a show, podcasts, loads of podcasts. And I loved the format. I loved the show just because I just enjoyed it. And I was a lot younger then. And I used to listen to it relentlessly on the way to this job that I hated. And it just got me through. And I guess it must have stuck somehow. That format was interesting to me. I've always liked podcasts. I think I like the fact that you can kind of just lose yourself in it. And I don't know, for like an hour on a commute, you can just not think about anything and lose yourself in that conversation. And one of the things I've tried to do with my show, which is a little bit different, is that I purposefully don't edit it. And I know some people might be like, oh, that's lazy, right? But the reason that I don't, other than the fact that I just can't be bothered, I do edit it if it needs to. If it needs to be edited, I will edit it.
Right.
There are little things I do. Like, it's not, I do edit per se, but I don't edit like, I don't do like jump cuts. I don't edit out like every and ah. I like to keep it like very, like imagine like you're sitting in a bar and like you're just listening to two people have an interesting conversation.
Right.
Like that's kind of the vibe I want to go for. And
sometimes the authenticity is relatable for others.
Yeah, well, that for me, that's a big important word in life, I think, is authenticity.
Right.
Because when I started doing all this creative stuff, like there was a point where I sat down back in 2019 and I looked at the YouTube channel and I was like, you know, how do I want to do this? I could do it like everyone else, create a character, or, you know, online persona, so to speak. And then I just kind of realized, like, I think that's very tiring. Like, if I would ever become successful, I would have to like play this character 24/7, which I just can't do that. Like, ain't nobody got time for that. But some people do. I don't know. And fair play to them, but I just couldn't do it. I think you'll never get 100% authenticity. I mean, you know, when you're doing shows like this or anything online, you are trying to show the best version of yourself. You're presenting, essentially. You know, you're not presenting in every waking moment of the day. Certainly I don't, but I think I'm a lot more chill. Yeah, I have my moments with friends and stuff in real life, but ultimately I'm quite relaxed and complete opposite of what I am online. But, you know, it is what it is. But at the same time, like, for me, that's important because I like that relatability. I like this idea of being honest and open with people. Yeah, and I think, as you said, it's more relatable. It's like, the more relatable you are, I think the more interest, generally speaking, you'll have and support, you know, in theory. But yeah, but I didn't address your question. We went off on a tangent. So
that was a good answer. Yeah.
Well, the podcast started in 2020. I very briefly did a show with two other people I met online. And it was very short-lived. I think we did like 7 episodes, which, funnily enough, is like a buzz number in the podcasting world. Right. There's these certain numbers. So, like, if you don't get past, like, if you set up a podcast, people might joke and be like, "Oh, let's see you get past 7 episodes." And I always say that whenever I hear someone setting a new one up, like, a part of me groans inside because I'm like, I respect it, but if you're going to set up a podcast, just know it's a lot of work and it's a big commitment. And realistically, most people don't get past 7 episodes, 20 episodes. And I've seen it so many times.
Right.
And I get it. I think what it is you have to be very patient. And I think you have to do it for reasons other than just trying to get listens and views, because it's very thankless. I mean, as I say, for me, it'll be 2 years in July. And as I said before,
congratulations.
Thanks. I've released nearly 160 episodes, and in that time, I've not, unfortunately, been able to grow it or gain a following or anything. I mean, I think I try to look at the successes here and there in between. But the reason why I'm not able to sort of sit and celebrate much is because, you know, the primary purpose of a podcast is for it to be listened to. And there's just not many people listening. So in many ways, it's been, I don't want to say a failure because it's not the right word, but it's not been successful by the numbers. And whenever people ask you about anything that you do in life, they will ask you about the numbers. They'll be like, well, you know, how's it going? What's the success rate? And whenever I tell people candidly, oh, well, this is how it's doing, they're like, oh, you know, like, oh, wow, like they won't say it, but like, oh, that's terrible. But I'm honest, like I've got nothing to hide, you know, I'm not going to lie to people. But I wish it would do better. I hope it does better. I've had to change my perspective on it. Like, I know it sounds like I'm being very negative, but I'm just being like open with you. Like, this is just how it is. But my feelings towards it are that, and this changed this year, actually. It started as just like a standard interview style podcast, and yeah, it was okay. I think for the first 50 or so episodes, people seemed to fairly enjoy it. It was like, you know, it was all right. And then somewhere in the 70s or 80s region, I sort of realized what the show is, because that's another thing as well. You start with a format, but the podcast changes over time because you change and your style changes. You get more confident, things get better, you know, maybe you get better equipment, whatever.
Right.
And I realized that for me, it's about sharing people's life stories and having like good conversations with people and trying my very best to not really pay attention to the question sheet in front of me and just be there in the moment and have a conversation. And I think we've been able to do that with the last 30, 40 episodes, I would say. I'm very proud of them. I think it's some of the best stuff I've done. And that's what I try to focus on now. You know, so like whenever I talk about it, you know, I'll give you the good, the bad, and the ugly when I talk about it. But I guess my point with all of this is like, if you're going to start a podcast, like just realize the numbers don't come straight away. For instance, I guested on a show recently, and I think they've been going for like 5 years. And I was in the midst of maybe giving them advice because I didn't know how long their show had gone, and I realized they trumped me. And then they said that apparently the point at which a podcast is supposed to come into its own is at like the 3-year mark.
Oh, okay.
But I've seen so many shows that contradict that. I've seen some shows that got successful in like 3 months, got thousands of views every episode, and then they just stopped doing it after like 6 months. You know, I've seen people go for like 500 episodes, not get anywhere and quit. I've seen people start like 5 episodes and quit. You know, they're like, I think if you're going to do a podcast, have like a clear goal in mind and reason for doing it and make that your focus. Do not make your focus. And I think this accounts for like just content in general, like content creating, anything. Don't do it for money or stats, because that is a surefire way to make yourself like pretty damn depressed. And not to say that you can't achieve those things, because you absolutely can, but I think the problem is twofold in that, you know, you might not in the short term get what you want, and that can be discouraging or disheartening. And secondly, even if you do get what you want, I mean, you don't want it to become all about money. There's been so many people I've seen who keep doing things like podcasts, and they've already made it and they're successful and they have been for years, but they see it as like a chore. And I think to myself, like, I never would want this to be a chore. I always want it to be entertaining and enjoyable for myself as well as other people. So
what matters most is you're having fun with what you're doing, and basically it's something that, you know, engages you to create more, encourages you to be more like engaging or like active in your passion and in what you love to do. And I guess that I think that in my personal opinion, podcasting does not just have to rely mostly on listeners or viewers, or if the podcast is a video format, it also relies on probably the relevance of guests and the people that come in your show. And I think that's what you have. You have a diversity of guests. You've interviewed a ballerina, as far as I can remember, an author, and also a fellow podcast host, and just recently a movie director. So tell me, how do you, reach out to people who are, in your show and who you think are good fit for your show?
It's changed over time.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be just anyone and everyone, like when you, and I still think this is true. Like if you're starting out, just reach out to anyone who you can have a good conversation with. Pay attention to how they conduct themselves, how they speak. Are they engaged and willing to have a conversation? That's key. I didn't realize that back in the beginning as much, but now that's like number one. Can I have a good conversation with this person?
Right.
And it doesn't have to, there's a misconception about this. It doesn't have to be, like, I'll give you an example. There was a guy I had on my show recently, and he reached out to me, and his message was something like, oh, hey, I'm not as probably not as interesting as like the rest of your guests, I'm just a guy. And I was like, listen, I don't care about any of that. Like, as long as you're committed and willing to have a conversation with me, it'll be good times. And it was. We just had a really good time just chatting. Because I've had people on the show, I won't say who, because I'm not about, disparaging anyone, but there was a couple of guests, and this was a learning curve for me. There was two guests in particular. One guest, they came on my show,
okay.
and I did all of the research and everything, as I always do. And it's like they just wouldn't give me anything, nothing.
Okay.
And I remember like being so frustrated, and I put it out, and I remember people getting back to me on my community, and they were just, because I remember grumbling on a live stream about it, and they were like, no, look, you did your best. Like, this guy was just not, it's the guy. So then they weren't going to give you anything. And I was just like, okay, what? But the way I looked at it was that, okay, what can I learn from this experience? And then I realized, like, there are a lot of people that will reach out to you that just want to be on your show because they just want exposure. And sometimes even that I'll get people, I don't respond to everyone that gets back to me. Sometimes people reach out to me and I can tell it's just, they just want to plug themselves, and I'm not interested in that. Because here's the thing. Yes, it is plugging. Yes, it is about, advertising yourself. But as I've said many times, appearing on other people's shows, I always say this, like, the thing that's going to interest people is not you standing there with a sign saying, hey, check this out, check this out, check this out. It's you win people over by showing. Right. Like, I try to keep my plugging to a minimum. If people ask me, I will obviously tell them. If the opportunity arrives, like, I'll give you an example. Like, if I'm on a live stream and we're talking and there's new people, I'll be like, oh, hey, everybody, by the way, I'm an actor, voice actor, musician, podcaster, and all sorts. You can find all of the information here. Cool. And then you move on. And that's it.
Right.
Keep it short and sweet and let people make their own judgment. That's how I do it. I know everyone's different, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way of doing it. I just think that's more effective. And because I come from like a marketing background and I've studied business and marketing for many years, I do kind of look at it from a different perspective as well. Like, I look at the customer, quote unquote, perspective. And nothing is more annoying than when something is shoved in your face constantly. Like, I don't know about you, but when you see like the YouTube videos, especially like 5 or 10 years ago, where just every 5 minutes it's like, hey guys, buy my merch, like, share, subscribe, and and it's like, it just used to annoy me. Like, when they would say that and do that, I made a point of not doing that. Like, I would respond more to the ones where they'd be like, oh, hey, maybe at the end they'd be like, oh, hey, and hey, if you enjoyed this, like, you can support me, blah, 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 and I really appreciate it. Yeah, that's better. Human interaction, realness, not do this, do this, do this, do that. You know what I mean? Like,
that's cold selling, I guess.
Well, it's just this attitude that people have. Like I was doing a live stream the other day and I was just playing, I do like music live streams, right?
Yeah.
And I do a combination of, I play covers and I play my own music, right? And my core community knows the deal and they're all really like sweethearts, really polite, lovely, and I will go out of my way to accommodate for them and play the stuff they would like to hear, but then you get people come in and they just be like, play this, do this. And I'm just like, well, I'm not a jukebox. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to just do what you say. Like, be polite, show some respect.
It's just like in the concert, you don't ask people like performers or like, we don't ask the Bee Gees to perform a specific song for us. They perform their own music the way they like it, and then they have their own set list.
I'm not saying that you should, well, okay. So like, I think it's good to accommodate and cater to your fans and listen to your fans if you have them, like, absolutely. But I just don't think that by like pelting stones at them and being like, do this, is going to do anything. But I remember one person recently, I'd never met them before, and they just kept coming into my live and demanding that I play this song, and I was purposefully ignoring them. And then I was just mocking them like, oh yeah, I've never heard of this band or song. Like, obviously I had, but it's because it was like a meme song that people troll people with, And then they said, oh, if you don't play it, I'm gonna leave this live. And I just found that so funny. Yeah, I was just like,
that is very manipulative, I guess.
But no, well, yeah, but like, why would I care? Like, you're free to leave, go, like, am I supposed to be like, no, please don't go, please don't, no, everything hangs on you and you alone. Like,
sometimes Christian people are just mean, I guess, on the internet.
Oh, no, this is fine. I'm just, I guess with this, what I'm trying to say, the underlying point is like, do things the way you think is best, and try not to pay too much attention to those like silly things. I mean, I don't know, I digress, but like when I think of these things in my head, they just tickle me, because it's like I don't care about trolls, I don't care about hate comments. I've seen it all. To me, it's a product of the internet. It's always been like that. I remember back when the internet first started, and just the way people were back then, it's not changed at all. It's got worse. But a lot of the time it's stuff that people would never have the guts to say to your face in a million years. It's only this online kind of keyboard warrior vibe. And I don't know, like, it's like, for instance, I get people sometimes the hate comments like do just make me laugh. Like, they used to get to me years ago, but now I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I'm still gonna do this stuff. I'm not gonna stop because of this one person's opinion, because that's what it is as well. It's an opinion. And like, I've seen like amazing, I remember years ago I was just like looking at some random like YouTube video, like it was like music video for someone, I don't know who it would have been, maybe Queen or something, right? And then like someone just said in the comment section like Freddie can't sing for shit or something, and I'm like, it's like, what? And I just wonder about that. Like, maybe that person genuinely just feels that way, and like, that's the thing then about an opinion. It's not wrong. And I think when I hear, that's another thing as well, when I hear people say, oh, that's the wrong opinion to have, like, don't get me wrong, there are certain things that we can all agree on, right? But when it comes to things like music and arts and movies and whatever, like, I don't think there are any right or wrong opinions. I mean, how you feel is how you feel. Yeah, I don't expect everyone to like me, because that's insane. Of course people are going to dislike you. Of course people aren't going to vibe with what you're doing. I mean, that's just life, and you just you get on with it and you work around it, and you focus on the people that do like your stuff. That's true. I've had my own community say that to me. There's been times when I had maybe like 20 people say, oh, this is brilliant, man, this is awesome, and then that one person says something horrible, and that's the thing I fixated on, and my community would literally just turn around and be like, why like all these other people said something nice and you're focused on this. And I think we're attuned to that. We're like almost geared to pay attention to the negative stuff in life, and we really should, unless there's something to learn, like it's constructive criticism or something. I don't think there's any real point in paying attention to it. Like it's because it doesn't serve you.
Yeah.
I think you have to pay attention to what serves you in life and react to that and make that your focus.
Right. So yeah, I'll just and then for the next question is, okay, Christian. So you talked about having a specific the relevance of authenticity, and you don't have to like edit videos, and I as an interviewer owning a like YouTube channel, I can totally relate to that, because I don't usually like add a lot of like flair to my videos and to the video interviews that I conduct. So what encourages you to keep going? The podcast has been on for 2 years now, and basically you mentioned about authenticity as one of the factors, but aside from all the strategies, the techniques, and the guests that you have encountered and met and also learned from, what is something that helps you or motivates you to keep the podcast going, to keep the conversations alive?
I think there's like 3 things in particular. In no particular order as well, though this is off the top of my head. Obviously, I think behind everything that I do, there is the small faint hope that maybe I might be able to make a career out of this. And I will say I want to do acting and voice acting and like television. That's my main goal. And I kind of include the podcast in that because, for example, I've had a lot of people say like, oh, have you ever considered doing radio? You'd be good at radio. Would you like to do documentaries? Yes, 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 and yes. And I see a podcast as being in line with that. And if you allow me to go on a tangent for a second, like I think that one thing I've noticed about creative endeavors is that they all link. So like, for example, let's say you're a painter, right? And you're also a musician. You'll find like a lot of similarities in the process and the way you approach it and think about it. And that's something I started to notice when I really started getting into all these creative things like properly. I started to realize like a pattern with everything. Everything was connected. And that I think has made me realize that, I want to do all of these things. I don't want to just do one of them. I want to do all of them. And I want all of them to be successful. And that's a big ask. It means having to work really hard to make it happen. But I think I want to make it happen because I love doing it. I want to make it happen because, to me, I can only really be like motivated when I'm really passionate about something. I do still have a day job. I still have work that pays the bills, but it doesn't inspire me. It's just like a paycheck, and it's good. I'm not complaining. I'm happy to have a job. There were times when I didn't have a job, and that sucked. But now I've kind of realized. I know. I'll tell you what it is. I know what I want to do in life now, and that only happened a few years ago. That realization of, okay, this is what I want to do in my life. Because we all come at that realization at different times. Some people realize that when they're really young. They know from day one. Some people can live a whole life and then finally realize what they want to do. I mean, everyone's timeline is different. And, we always hear that, you don't compare yourselves to other people. I'll share one thing that one of my community said with me that cheered me up. And I think your listeners will benefit from this too.
Yeah.
They said, stop comparing yourself to other people, focus on your own journey and compare yourself with where you used to be and where you are now, and look at that as your kind of, and I'm paraphrasing, but like barometer of success, your measuring stick. Where did I used to be? Where am I now? Because it's easy to look at everybody else's success and where they're going, but the thing is, you don't know their journey. You really don't, unless you've been there with them every step of the way. You haven't seen their journey, so there's really no point comparing. And it goes wider than just not comparing because it's a bad thing to do. It's because you haven't seen the whole journey, so you just don't know. Because we always assume that, you know, when you look at someone else, you go, oh, they're so lucky, and I'm guilty of it. I've said the same thing many times, but it's true. You don't know the journey. You don't know the struggles, how long it's taken to get there. There's no such thing as an overnight success. That's BS. It's hard work, determination, and there is luck involved. I do believe that. I think many of the people I've spoken to over the years, content creators who've been doing it years, people who've just started, whatever, they always say it's a waiting game. It's you know, you could do this for years and years and years and never get anywhere, or you could do it for like 6 months and suddenly you're huge. It's a bit like the lottery, you know, you have to be in it to win it. You have to just keep trying. But I think what you said before about having the right motivations to do it, like, you know, doing it because you enjoy it, like, I think that's key. And also that's key because it will come across to people. It's really like you can't hide your intentions from people. You can try, but people will know if you're just doing this for money or trying to get famous or whatever. Like, and I've said this to my audience as well. Like, for me, I don't especially care about fame or money or anything like that. Like, I just want to do these things for a living because this is what I love to do. And bringing it back to the three things I was talking about, see, I can do that. A bigger reason why I keep doing this is because I get people reach out to me every once in a while and they'll tell me, this got me through a dark time. I listened to your show. I listened to this song. Your videos cheered me up, something like that. And, you know, I've said it before, I say it again, like, I'm just some guy, you know, nothing special, just some guy. I've got big dreams, big hopes, but I am just some guy. And I think it's weird for me hearing that, because I'm just like, oh, that was just something I just did for fun. Like, this is some silly video, or like, you know, that's just me having a conversation with someone or whatever, you know. But hearing that it's actually impacted someone in some way, and this only happened in the last year or so, but it began to kind of made me think about the weight of responsibility of this. Because I never used to think about that. I just used to be like, okay, I'll just keep doing this and whatever happens, happens, right? Maybe it'll go somewhere, maybe not. Like, who cares, right? I care, but you know what I mean? But then you start getting those messages and you start realizing, like, okay, some people rely on this stuff that I do. That's heavy. That's a big deal. Like, suddenly now it stops feeling so meaningless and now it starts feeling meaningful. So take the podcast, you know, there are people that have reached out to me about that. And that's been motivation enough for me to keep going and keep doing it. Because I think of them, I'm like, you know what? I might mumble and gripe and groan about things from time to time, but I'm motivated to keep going because I know that those people enjoy it and those people get something out of it and they appreciate it. And that, above all else, is the whole point of this, is it not? To be a performer is to entertain and to, I don't know, to inspire, to motivate, to make people laugh, to make people cry, something, feel an emotion, you know, that's the whole point. And that brings me to the third and final thing, which is that at the end of the day, I do just love to do creative things. I love podcasting. I'll go back to why in a second. But with acting and music, I always love performing and the feeling that brings. And the emotions that it invokes. And it's one of those things that for me, it comes naturally. Not everything in life comes naturally. You know, we're all geared towards different things. We all have different talents and things. We can do anything. We truly can. But some things come to us easier than others. Like I'm terrible at maths. I'll always be bad at maths.
I
I've
can relate.
accepted this. It's okay, right? But then there are some people that are like wizards when it comes to maths, but maybe they're not so great at playing an instrument, and that's fine. You know, that doesn't make you any lesser or more. It's just we're all geared towards different things. And I think when you begin to understand that and accept that and accept who you are, then there's like a certain degree of like power and liberty and freedom that comes with that. It's like an amazing kind of liberating feeling when you finally accept that. And with the podcast, as I said, when I first started, you know, I was just, you know, okay, 5 episodes, 10 episodes, 20. Can we get to 30? Okay, wow. Can we get to 50? Wow, that's a big deal. 70. Oh my God, now we're 100, 150. You know, it keeps going, right? You just keep going, you keep doing it. But over the time, I kind of realized that what I was trying to do was I was trying to release this thing that I'd always wanted to do. But I think I learned throughout the course of it what the purpose was. The purpose is, as I said before, is to share people's life stories and have good conversations. But through that, I've become a better conversationalist. I've become a better listener, which is key in being a good podcaster, key in being a good conversationalist. Always be the listener. If you can be the listener, I mean, you know, you'll learn so much from just sitting and listening. You know, whenever you speak, you're just repeating information you already know. But, and you know, don't get me wrong, it's nice to share stories and, you know, relate to people, of course, right? But I always look at it like a time and a place. You know, right now, my purpose is to share stories on here and talk to you, right? And like, that's fine. So it's okay to talk right now. But other times I try and just sit and listen and absorb and grow and you know, and that's what I do with the podcast. And that is the third and final thing that motivates me about it, because I just gain knowledge through these amazing people. I just kind of absorb everything that they say, and it helps me grow and learn and change and evolve. And there's been so many episodes, particularly in the last year, where I just sat there for like 5 minutes afterwards and just was just blown away by the whole thing. I was like, wow, like that's what it's about. That's why I'm doing this, because of moments like this, conversations like this. And that is also why I was a little bit frustrated earlier, and sometimes why I get frustrated about the views and listens thing. It's not because I want, you know, 10,000 listens and views. That would be great. The more important reason is that I want people to hear it, because I want them to feel how I felt when I sat there and listened to that person speak and felt amazing in that moment and inspired to do more. That's what I want to convey to people, and for what I would like for people to take away from that conversation when they hear it.
Lastly, Christian, sorry, my dog is acting up.
Like dogs.
Anyway, so lastly, Christian, what is your message to people who are passionate about what they do? And basically, you mentioned a lot about, you know, pursuing what you love. How do you give advice to people who have seen like inevitable obstacles along the way, and they still want to do what they love? Like, for example, in acting, you're passionate about acting, but for some people, they don't have that outlet. They don't have there's a lack of opportunities for others out there. And even though there is a grit for a lot of people to pursue their calling, their passion, what is your advice to them to have courage in pursuing them?
As you were talking there, it reminded me of this creator that I've seen recently. It's this kid in Africa. I don't know how old he is. Maybe could be 15, 16, could be younger. I don't know, maybe a bit older. I think I can't, because I don't know the economics of Africa. I've got friends in Africa and stuff, but I don't know if where he lives would be considered poor or rich. But you know, like you see some of the in the backgrounds of the videos that the buildings are dilapidated, whatever, right? He's a huge wrestling fan. I'm a big wrestling fan too, right? And all his videos are him doing like recreating wrestling entrances, and it's a lot of fun, and he's actually amassed a huge following, and people love the videos, and they're fun, and you know, he has fun with them. And the reason that I bring it up is that, look, he doesn't have loads of money. He can't like recreate it, you know, with like you know, he doesn't have like his costume. He'll make costumes out of anything, you know. He's clever. Like he'll make the best out of what he has. And when you spoke about like people not having the opportunities to do things, I get what you mean. Not everyone has like access to resources, or you know, maybe they don't have the money right now, and I can totally relate to that. There's a lot of things I would love to be doing, and people tell me like, why don't you do this? Like, for example, why don't you get in the studio and write, you know, record your music? I'd love to. If I had the money and the means to do so, I would jump in there and record it all now, but I just don't. Maybe one day it'll happen, whatever. But I work with what I have, and that's my point. Work with the tools that you have. Like, if you don't have the things you need, just look at what's possible right now. Like when I first started the podcast, the microphone that I had was like, I bought it for like 20 euros in Europe, and it was a piece of crap. Like, it was awful. But do you know what? It recorded sound.
Right. And
I knew that maybe one day I would get a microphone, a better one. And I did. About not even 6 months later, I had someone make a donation, a fellow creator, and I was able to get it because of them. Shout out to Stilsy. I'll never stop celebrating you. Thank you. Because he believed in me, and he did that, and it was amazing, and I took it seriously. And that's another reason why, as well, by the way, why I keep doing the show, is because of that. I'm like, oh, this guy believed in me. I got to keep going for Stilsy. But the point is, you will get the tools that you need. But you know, it's kind of like that old movie, Field of Dreams, where the guy says, if you build it, they will come. It's the same principle. Just do what you can right now with the tools you have. If you don't quite have the tools, find a way to get the tools, even if it's just basic stuff, basic equipment, or, you know, whatever, you know, like, do what you can now to make your dreams happen, and just never stop. Realize that you're going to have good days and bad days. On those bad days, try to think about the successes that you've achieved so far, and, you know, the lessons that you've learned and how far you've come, and try to remember like why you're doing this in the first place. You know, it's not all about fanfare and money and attention. The main reason you're doing this is because you love to do this, and you want to get better, and you want to share that with the world. And even if just a handful of people see that, that's a success. And only you can truly determine what success means in your life. And I think that, you know, passion is a relative thing. How do you stay passionate? I think you stay passionate by just loving what you do and staying true to what you do, and not wavering and not letting anything interfere with that. Just keep loving what you do, and the passion will always remain.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely wise word. Those are definitely wise words, Christian. And thank you so much for coming along and sharing your insights. And it's really like really, I learned a lot from what you said about, you know, pursuing things that we love to do, and using the things that are available to us to do to make everything possible for what we do. So thank you so much. And yeah, to all our listeners, I will leave Christian's social media channels below in this in the description of this video. And if you want to listen to his podcast, I will also put the link down below. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Christian, and have a great day, guys.